The love interest is a horse. There's a red-headed, blue-eyed character named Carrie. The steamy scenes, women going through shit and turning into shellfish. Hello, long time no see. It took me an obscene amount of time to get this camera set up. I haven't sat down and talked to you guys in a very long time. I need to turn the air conditioner on. That's why I'm so hot. Oh my god. Much better. I think we're ready to go now. Welcome to a monthly reading wrap up. If you're not new here, I promised June was going to be a little messy because I've been away. I went on vacation a little over 2 weeks, I think. I was in Paris, which is a place I've been to many times, but then I went to the south of France for the first time, and you can see all of that on my vlog channel. I had an amazing time, but as a result, didn't get much reading done. I just could not concentrate. And so actually by the end of this month, there's a lot of books that are DNFs, but I'm going to give you my reasoning as to why I DNF'd them. Some of them were because of the book, some of them were because of my brain. But yeah, we've got things to talk about. There were books that were read, luckily. But yeah, just as a warning, this is a wonky month. And also just thank you for being okay with me taking a 2-week vacation. I didn't post for 2 weeks, and that was really nice. I just couldn't, there was no content for me to make. You know, I gotta read in order to make videos, and I just can't. Couldn't do that. So I was able to schedule one video for you guys while I was away, so hopefully that kind of bridged a little bit of a gap. Speaking of being able to schedule things and making content online, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. Thank you as always. Squarespace is where you can host your online presence. So I personally have a blog, but they have all different features like monetization to open a shop, comments and linking your social media accounts, email lists if you want to create some kind of online portfolio or community. They have super easy to use templates to make your work look really professional in a couple of clicks, and they have a wonderful analytics section to tell you what people are reading, what people are looking at, where people are coming from, etc. So thank you so much as always to Squarespace. You can go right now to squarespace.com to try it for free, set it up, play with those beautiful templates, and then you can go to squarespace.com/carriecanread to get 10% off your first website or domain, and all that will be in the description box. So thank you as always to Squarespace. But now onto the list, and as usual, I look so pale in the viewfinder, but I feel like when I put it on my computer, I'm not. It's rainy season, so we are getting bursts of these bright white clouds and then these super dark clouds that are just gonna dump a bunch of rain on us. If suddenly I look like a deer in the headlights, they're beautiful. They're just not great for someone who uses natural light for her videos. But anyway, let's get started. Thank God I took notes. Thank you, Past Carrie, for that. Diving right into the first book I read, which I actually talked about in my mid-year freakout tag that I posted a couple weeks ago. And this is Endling by Reva. Some people got a little confused when I talked about it in my mid-year freakout tag, so I'm going to try and be a little bit more specific in my explanation of it. So I read this as an ARC, an advanced reader's copy, but I believe it's already out now. So this is Endling. It is not what you expect. And the reason why I was kind of vague in how I talked about it in my mid-year freakout tag is because having it unfold with you knowing as little as possible was like half of the joy of this book. And not that this book is necessarily joyful, but it was just such a refreshing reading experience. It was quite a new style for me. The book starts off where we're following a couple different women who, for various reasons, are linked to the Ukrainian kind of marriage market, the kind of sex tourism industry, as it were. So just a bunch of like rich, usually American guys coming over to Ukraine to find like these beautiful young women to marry and take back to the US. So those characters were actually so interesting. We have one girl who joined this company just so that she could fund her research, and she is trying to save snails from extinction. So she just has this like camper van that she drives around Ukraine trying to save snails. So she's quite a character. And then we have another girl who has joined because her mom is like a feminist activist, kind of famous in Ukraine, and she is very anti this like sex tourism industry, obviously. So her mom has been missing. She kind of went into hiding and her daughter doesn't know where she is. So she decided, on one hand, she's pissed at her mom, so she's going to join, right, to piss off her mom. But on the other hand, she misses her mom, so she hopes that this brings her mom out of hiding. But then she decides, you know what? I'm going to do something big. I'm going to get my mom's attention. I'm going to blow the industry up from the inside. And she decides to kidnap all of the men in the company who are coming to like find wives, and shit hits the fan. Because what is happening in Ukraine right now, what has been happening in Ukraine, the war, right? So this is taking place, it is contemporary. So we're dealing with this country that at any moment they're expecting missiles to fall from the sky, right? So it's just this really strange and tense environment. And this is where if you just want to kind of stop, you can skip. I'll put like a timestamp. Because I think that this is what makes the book really interesting, and it's kind of fun to read it without knowing. But if you want to continue, here's your moment to skip. See ya. Okay, so I'm reading it thinking like, oh, this is a funny work of fiction, when it stops. And instead, the camera turns to the author, who is trying to sell this book, right? Like, this is her idea of the book. And then she's like, hold up. She's kind of talking to herself / her publisher. And she's like, no, this doesn't feel right. Like, what a stereotype to talk about the, like, Ukrainian wife industry, which, like, is it even a big thing anymore? I don't really want to talk about it. And then I also have to throw in the fact that Ukraine is at war. That's another cliche. Like, I can't talk about, like, I just want to write about my home country without having to talk about these two cliches, but this is what the publisher wants. And then if she does write about war, she writes about it with a kind of sense of humor, because that's how she was raised, right? Like, you look at these horrible things and you've just got to make a joke about it. That's how you get through these things. But her publisher wants her to write this really harrowing, sad story about Ukrainians going through this situation. She's just really struggling with, how do I talk about Ukraine in a way that I want to, but also from her vantage point, which is someone who has moved to Canada. She is not living in Ukraine. So she feels such a detachment, but also such a connection to it. And so it's kind of about this diaspora. Like, every time she sees Ukraine on the news, she immediately thinks of all of her friends and family that she knows. Like, she knows their apartment names. That's what she's scanning for. Like, how can she feels like half of her body is there and half of her body is in Canada watching from afar. And how do you write about it? And it just goes a little bit off the rails. I'm gonna be honest, at the end I was sort of like, what is going on? But it was a really interesting exploration of, like, how do you exist as a Ukrainian person right now with everything that's going on? And it's been going on for so long that for so many other people, it's kind of faded to the background. But then there's all these really kooky characters of, like, I want to save the snails, and I might have a crush on this guy who lives a million miles away from me who also wants to save the snails. But yeah, like, it was absurd and funny, and I really appreciated the fact that the author was at the forefront talking to us about how difficult this was, like, whether or not those were her real thoughts, our kind of fictional author. I just really liked it. So that is Endling. I was crying over snails. So it did something. That's Endling by Maria Reva. Next up is a DNF, and this one really hurts me. And I also read this as an ARC, but it is out now, and I read The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy. As you know, I'm not a fanfic person. It's just not something I've really ever delved into. And so the only fanfic I've ever read was thanks to my friend who showed me the cover. I was sold by, like, the cover of this fanfic. I read the Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Falling in Love. And this is a Dramione fic, which is Draco and Hermione. This is after they have left school. One becomes I don't remember. I think Hermione is a healer and Malfoy is an Auror. I always pronounce that incorrectly. He's like a detective policey kind of guy. And they have to team up to solve something, and he needs to be her bodyguard. And blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I had a good time. I thought it was really funny. I thought that what she did with the world, how she brought it to life in kind of their adult world, was great. Yeah, fun. So The Irresistible Urge is that book just traditionally published. So of course they had to rework the world. We could not use the foundation that she built off of, right, with Draco and Hermione. And unfortunately that reworking for me really killed the plot and the chemistry. So in The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, we're dealing with our Draco character who is an assassin, but we never really learn, like, I think I read to about 30%, and we don't really know, like, why or what or anything, to be honest. Like, we don't really know anything about his role, just that he's a killer. And that's why the Hermione character, who is a healer, doesn't like him. Okay? And they need to work together because he is cursed. I believe his magic is running out somehow. And so he goes to the Hermione character to try and find a cure for it, and basically offers himself as like a test dummy because she does really want to do this research, but hasn't been able to. And so he's kind of like, hey, human experiments, heard they're nice. You got one right here. And so that's kind of how they end up working together. The issue is they don't know each other. Like, I think the thing that made and makes a lot of Hermione fanfic so strong is that we as the reader understand their history, right? They were rivals. They hated each other at school. Sometimes, I mean, it runs even deeper than that, depending on like what parts of the story you choose to work with. But they have a history, right? They've known each other since they were 11. And in this book, they don't know each other. They meet when Malfoy storms into her office and basically demands that she helps him. And so they hate each other on sight, kind of just because Malfoy is an assassin and Hermione is Hermione. You know, she's a little stuck up. It's fine. She deserves to be. She's the best healer in the world. But there was such a lack of chemistry because of it. Like, they just kind of were rude to each other on sight. Yeah, I just felt no real interest in it, honestly. I was so bored. I literally wrote, boring. Was it just because I read the original? So if any of you guys have read it without having read the original fanfic, let me know. But for me, knowing how great it was as a fic, I felt like taking out the way that she had to make changes because of the world building. Like, why couldn't they have still known each other? You know? I just, that call, I don't know. It felt like by taking out the Hogwarts world building, we just didn't really infuse any other world building into it. Like, she made up names for things. Like, he wasn't an assassin. He was like a blah, blah, blah. And he had everybody has a tattoo. I don't even remember. But there were like the most surface level attempts to create another world, but it just unfortunately fell so flat for me. So yeah, please let me know though if you read it without the original, because I really, really wonder if that just kind of ruined it for me, because it was so funny. It was like immediately so stupid, rom-com, I hate you, but we know, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, the irresistible urge to fall for your enemy. But after that, oh my god. Disclaimer, Axie O is my friend, but I read The Floating World. I had a good time. I need the sequel immediately. So The Floating World, first of all, every single cover, as usual, Axie, how does she pull it off? I don't know. Every single cover is amazing. We are dealing with our two main characters, and they each have big issues that bring them together. So I'm gonna be honest, the world building was a little confusing for me. So if I get things wrong, partially it's memory and partially I was a little confused. It's a quite complicated world. We have kind of the mortal realm, and then we have this other realm, like a kind of magical realm, and within that there's the floating world, and then there's kind of the underworld, right? So we're dealing with all of these things, okay? So we have our main girl who we meet in the mortal realm, and she is living with her adopted family when their kind of caravan gets attacked by demons and her little brother gets bitten. So she knows that she needs to cross the mountain range into this kind of other realm and get help, find a cure, save her little brother. On the other hand, we have our main boy who, he's a complicated figure. What does he even technically do? I'm not even going to go into it, but basically he and a group of a bunch of other trackers and criminals and all of these things are given the task to find a certain girl with powers and kidnap her and bring her back to the general. And if he accomplishes this task first, he will get help finding his lost brother. And who do you think the girl with powers is? Who do you think the girl with powers is? What makes this plot very confusing is not only is the world just a little bit complicated and maybe not explained perfectly, is the fact that both of our main characters have memory issues, or they just aren't telling us everything. So our main boy has no memory for the past couple of years. The only thing that he remembers is that he had a brother. and his brother is not around. So that's his whole task, is working with literally nothing. He's trying to find his brother. And then our main girl has big memory gaps. It may or may not be on purpose for us, the reader. So there, you could just tell that we were dealing with people who were not giving us the full story, whether it was their choice or not. But I thought the world building was so fun. I love how Axie mixes Korean folklore with this super fantastical world. It was almost kind of, the underworld part was almost kind of steampunky. And our main girl, her family that she travels with, they are folk dancers. So you kind of get to learn about the masks and a lot of the Korean folk dances, which are so fun. And so she actually wears a mask for a lot of the book. And so it was so fantastical and fun. According to my notes, I basically just said that it was faster than I'm used to, and I wish that we sat with the characters a little more. So this is a really fast moving book. We are pretty much introduced to the characters and their quests, and then they kind of immediately find each other and their quests swiftly change. I think it really settled down, like it really hit its mark around the 75% mark, so that I know that second book is going to be silky smooth, amazing, chaotic, but I think the pacing is going to be wonderful. There was just so much to kind of drop us into. And again, we're working with characters with memory issues. But yeah, I just had a really great time with it. And I know that the second book, the arc, is already out, so I'm trying to get my hands on it. If you're interested in starting it now, the second one is likely coming out sometime next year. So you can easily just dip right into the sequel. So that is The Floating World by Axie. Oh my God, next up. I don't know which one of you recommended this to me, but this was actually quite a few of you did. This was commented about multiple times in my funny fantasy books video. Quite a few of you recommended Just Stab Me Now. And I went into it not knowing a damn thing. And what the hell was that book? So first of all, there's a red-headed, blue-eyed character named Carrie. It's getting to be too much. Like, and this continues throughout the whole month, by the way. These redheaded characters, or like hiding the fact that you have red hair. I could not. But this one took the cake because her name was literally Carrie, and I just could. I almost put the book down. I was like, absolutely not. So this is a classic, may I say, enemies to lovers story, but the author is super involved in it. So it kind of got a little old. Like, it was funny in the beginning, and then by 2/3 I was sort of like, I kind of just want to read the story. But by the end, I actually really liked it. So we have this setup of like what is meant to be a perfect enemies to lovers storyline, right? Where like a princess has to marry her enemy, whatever it is, right? She doesn't hate him on sight or something like that. I'm trying to give you an idea of how this works, right? I'm probably not remembering correctly, but she's supposed to hate him on sight, but he doesn't give her any reason for her to hate him. So she's kind of like, oh, okay. And then the author is like, no, girl. You're supposed to hate his guts. Like, get with the program, kick him or something, bite him. Like, you hate this man. Swear to kill him. Get some tension going. Like, what are you doing? Why are you so lukewarm about this? Like, we want it to be hot. We want it to be angry. The character is like, first of all, who are you? And second of all, like, I'm not going to hate this guy for no reason. That's ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? So the author has just no control over her characters. And there's actually a lot of talk, like specifically with the man. She's trying to get him to like be rough, you know, be like, you should grab her. And like she, you know, maybe she tried to run away or something. I'm making this all up, but like she tried to run away. Oh, you should grab her and you should lock her in the room and like blah, 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 blah. And he's like, why would I treat a woman that way? She obviously is trying to set up a steamy scene of like, you know, the knife to the throat kind of thing. And he's just like, I'm sorry, I don't treat women that way. And she's just like, yeah. So it was kind of funny. It was very meta. And of course she's dealing with her own love life problems with her publisher, her editor. Yeah, you know what? It was a good time. I think it was a good palate cleanser. Like I said, there were points where I was like, okay, we get it. Like, I wish the author would have stepped back a little bit. But overall, it was really fun. I think that's all I said in my notes. That's it. So if you are an author trying to write an enemies to lovers story and you feel like your characters are just not cooperating either, just stab me now. Just stab me now. And after that, I think I was getting like my pre-international trip jitters, and so I had to just keep reading kind of funny, silly stuff. So I immediately went into Behooved. What sold me is that people were like, it It's very similar to My Lady Jane in the fact that the love interest is a horse. That's what sold me. So this was, if you actually think about the plot, it was a very silly plot, right? This was a romantasy that really didn't have strong bones in terms of what was happening outside of the romance. So really, if you think about it, the entire plot is just them kind of walking around and talking, which is not bad. I didn't mind. One of them is trotting, one is walking, but you know, you get the idea. But it was funny and it was comforting and silly, and I was fine with it. So Behooved is about a princess who is forced to marry a prince, tale as old as time, in order to barter, you know, peace on earth is the goal, right? So they have their wedding ceremony, they retire for the night, they're both pissed at each other. These are two characters that hate each other on sight. They've never met, they don't like each other. They retire for the night and immediately we have an assassination attempt. During the assassination attempt, there's a scuffle which leaves our groom in the form of a horse. And so in order to keep themselves safe, because we don't know who ordered the assassination attempt, they can only trust each other. They go galloping off away from everyone to try and find this cure and figure out the magic and all of this stuff. So it's absurd, it's silly. It, again, like didn't have the strongest plot, but if you just kind of need something to get yourself maybe out of a reading slump, this was someone who by the end of this was slumping pretty hard. This was a book that was just easily digestible, cute, harmless, boys that turn into horses. Unfortunately, I may love that trope. So that is Behooved. I don't know where my copy went, but next up I read Bonjour Tristes. So I was going to the south of France and I wanted to do some prep. That is what I chose to read. And my copy is about this thick. So I was prepared for a longer book, but it turns out that my paperback is actually 2 short stories put together. So Bonjour Tristes is actually only 100 pages. So I read that in one sitting. This is a perfect, lazy summer read. That captures both summer and being a teenager so well. The author actually wrote this when she was, I believe, 17, and it was just perfect. We're following our main character who is a teenager who lives with her kind of bachelor, pleasure-loving, like let's just have fun and enjoy life kind of father. And so he brings his daughter and his mistress, and they just like have this wonderful time in the south of France. When her mother's friend comes for a visit, she happens to be in town and kind of turns everything upside down. I went in knowing nothing. I believe you should as well. And yeah, it just really, really captured both of those things, summer and being a teenager. Specifically, I think that 16, 17-year-old that is given a little too much freedom. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it. I just think it did exactly what it wanted to do, and it's crazy that it was written by a 17-year-old, but it also couldn't have been written by anyone other than a 17-year-old. You know? So yeah, if you're looking for a quick read, if you're going to be by any beach, doesn't matter if it's in the south of France, Bonjour Tristes. Oh my God. I need to stop this so that I need to talk about this book for a long time and I'm running out of tape. So this was another book that was recommended in my funny fantasy. You guys, that comment section is a gold mine. I will link that video down below. My funny fantasy books. You guys brought it with the recommendations. This one, I believe only one person recommended it. And thank God I listened to you. You sold it with your like 2-sentence summary of what this book was about. Hilarious. Had a fantastic time. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I read Grave Situation. I wasn't sure how I felt about it in the very beginning, but you immediately fall in love with all of these characters, and it is so stupid and so funny, like very, very laugh out loud funny. Okay, so what is Grave Situation about? Our main character is a teacher. We are in a magical realm, right? Grave Situation is a fantasy. It is a heroic quest kind of fantasy. So our main character is a very powerful mage. I forget the term that they use, but he is, you know, very, very good at what he does. He has a lot of power, but he is still stuck teaching the freshmen at school and he hates it. He teaches the first years. He's one of those teachers that like clearly hates teaching but is so fucking good at it. This job is basically him being punished for being a smartass. And so the headmaster like will not let him move jobs. And he, like I said, he's damn good at it. So he stays in this job until one day the world gets turned on its head because this farmer appears out of nowhere and he needs to talk to our main character's mentor. And what happens in this meeting? The farmer produces a rock, a tiny rock that you can hold in your hand. And it turns out that this rock is basically God. Like, this is the rock of creation. This little stone created all of life. And it came out of hiding to tell us that another zombie apocalypse is upon us. This sounds so stupid. I'm not explaining this really well. But basically, the appearance of this stone is a warning sign that the zombie apocalypse is upon us. And this apocalypse happened a couple thousand years prior, so we know that this is a real thing that occurs. And the rock can talk, but only to a few selected people. One of them being our main character. And the rock chooses our main character and a couple other people, namely his twin sister, this really good healer who our main character may or may not have the hots for, which is a very funny storyline. There are dragons. We're bringing horses. We're bringing dragons. So we have this little crew, and we're going to travel around the kingdom until the rock finds the hero that he needs, who is going to save the world from this zombie apocalypse. I can't tell you much more. It was just so stupid funny. I loved all the characters. The pacing was a little bizarre. Like, after the 50% mark, the pacing gets a little bit wonky. I kind of wish that there is romance, and I kind of wish that the romance was, you know what? No. The romance was fine. The romance was fine. I was having a really, really great time until very quickly I wasn't, and all of a sudden I was crying once again in public. So it's got a little something for everybody. I do wish the ending was a little bit stronger. Like, the last third, there was so much action that it kind of lost that levity and joy and just like fun character banter that I really like. But overall, I had a really good time. What do my notes say? Oh, how did I forget my favorite character? There is a man who is literally a golden retriever, and not like, oh, he's, just like a friendly guy. No, this man literally does not have a brain. Like, we pick up as we're traveling along through the kingdom, we pick up new people to add to our little posse, right? And the people we pick up along the way, this is literally, maybe the adventure was the friends we made along the way. The people we pick up are so funny. And we pick up this one guy who is like smoking hot. Like, everyone, the second they see him, they're like, wow, you are the most attractive person I've ever met. And then he opens his mouth and everyone's like, oh, no one's home. And he's so, oh my god, but you just love him. So these are my notes. This is what I wrote. I said, a magical rock sends an unlikely hero on a quest to find the one champion that can stop the zombie apocalypse, and there are dragons, a man who is literally a golden retriever, and angst. The end was rushed compared to the rest of the book. That's all I wrote. My review, the end of my review was also rushed, apparently. Yeah, it was a funny time. I think that this author typically writes romances. This was maybe their first fantasy, but you know what? There was like political religious intrigue, when religion is kind of dipping their toe a little bit too much into the politics of the world. There was like enough interesting world building as well. Grave situation. Talking rocks. Enjoy. Thank you so much to the person who recommended it to me, because I was kind of intimidated because I think it's 500 pages and I was getting ready for a trip and I knew my brain doesn't really work in that time frame. It kept me engaged. So, grave situation. After this, I only read 50% of this book, but it wasn't the book's fault. For me, I really enjoy reading young adult, but sometimes the young adult reads a little too young for me. And again, that's not the book's fault, it's mine. So that's kind of why I put it down. I just wasn't super interested, but I think that if this premise sounds interesting to you and you're okay reading a kind of younger feeling book, here we go. I read Into the Sunken City. I had this as an ARC, but I believe it should be out by now. It's been sitting on my NetGalley for a really long time. This is about a world that is mostly underwater. This was not due to climate change. It was actually due to a scientific oopsie daisy. I believe it was like a weather channel was trying to get more accurate data. So they sent up something into the atmosphere, and now it never stops raining. So the world is underwater. Most of the cities are completely submerged. And we are following our main girl who is trying to raise her little sister. Her parents have passed away. They own like an inn, like a boarding house. And so they're trying to just make ends meet, make enough money in order to keep paying like their taxes so that herself and her little sister don't have to join the Coast Guard or like the military, basically, because that's their only alternative. If you don't pay your taxes, you are put into the military, right? And the main way that a lot of people make money now is diving into these sunken cities and harvesting any kind of treasure that they can find. And our girl, for some reason, is really good at diving, but also that is how her parents died or how her father passed away. And when a really bizarre pirate-esque character shows up at their boarding house and has this massive plan, I believe they go to Vegas. She has this plan to do this big dive and they're gonna get all of this money. It's kind of like an underwater heist. She ropes them in to doing the dive to end all dives, right? And that's kind of when I stopped. There is a romance, but I didn't really enjoy it. I also just didn't really like our weird, quirky pirate character. And then as the story progressed, we were introduced to more characters that I really didn't enjoy. Like, I just didn't like reading about any character, unfortunately. I enjoyed the world. I was very interested in learning more about why the world was underwater and how people make things work, but not quite enough to keep reading. But if you're interested in a kind of post-apocalyptic underwater pirate storyline, that is Into the Sunken City. I also think going into it, I thought it was more of a fantasy. I didn't realize that it was going to be just kind of like a sci-fi post-apocalyptic storyline. So that also kind of contributed to my DNF, just so you know. And so if you can't tell, that was the beginning of my DNF marathon for the rest of the month. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of books that I didn't finish. I'm going to try and give you my thoughts, my reasonings for why I didn't finish it. I've seen conversations online about how like people shouldn't review books that they didn't finish, but I think that it's valuable to know why someone didn't finish a book because it might not be the same reason for you. So I'm not gonna go on, I don't give star ratings on any platforms, but like I'm not gonna go give a book like a 1-star review when I didn't finish it. But I think talking about it here, where this is more of like a conversation and just my thoughts, I do find value in it. I'm always interested in hearing why other people don't finish books, so that's my disclaimer. Do with it what you will. But the next book that I did not finish, unfortunately, is Harmattan Season. This is one I really looked forward to because it was compared to the work of P. Jolly Clark, which I really like, as you know, Masters of Jinn, that whole world. But unfortunately, this book, I felt like we were really dropped in the middle of a world. Like I felt like I was missing so much context. And even though I actually really liked, I think I read up to maybe 40%, even though I was really interested in the characters, like I loved every conversation that was had, I just really felt like I was missing something. At its core, it was really a mystery linked to a lot of political intrigue that if I felt like I was missing something, I was not going to enjoy the outcome. However it ended, I would be still confused. I felt that. So that's why I put it down. Our main character is basically investigating this very strange string of murders. We're specifically interested in one woman because we witnessed her murder and she like was floating in the sky. There's some kind of magic going on and we're very confused by it. So our main character is investigating it and he kind of lives in this weird space where isn't technically employed by the government, but he works for them. And so the locals don't like him because this is taking place, I'm not sure if it specifies, but it's taking place in West Africa during kind of the height of French colonization. And so the French have infiltrated and taken over the government of this area. So if you work with the government, your local people obviously are not going to support you. But in order to do his police work, he needs to work with the government in order to help his, I don't know. So like his position, how he kind of navigates through life is very difficult. And he's actually kind of hikikomori, like he doesn't have agoraphobia, but he chooses not to really leave his apartment anymore because he's like, everywhere I go, I cause problems. So I'm not going to leave my house. But the woman who was murdered, if you're wondering how he gets involved in this entire storyline, she just barges into his apartment one day, covered in blood, and then runs out again. And he's like, yeah, I might return to it. This was just really like, I needed books that felt like mush in my brain because that was the last book I read before I got on my airplane and my brain does not work. 48 hours before a flight, don't ask me anything. I am in panic mode. So that was Harmattan season. If you've read it, let me know what you think. But yeah, I really felt like I was missing some context. Like the characters kept referring to their previous experience when they were soldiers and blah, blah, blah. And so wasn't the time. Harmattan season. And then on the plane, you know what I do on airplanes. I read romantic comedies. And what did Ali Hazelwood have for me? A problematic summer romance. Yes, I did read it. You know what? Had a good time. I feel like I say this with every Ali Hazelwood. The tropes are usually not my thing, and somehow I still really enjoy it. This was her age gap romance. And she's been doing this in her last couple of books where she picks either a trope or something to really hone in on and kind of not really play the devil's advocate, but kind of give a different perspective on it. And so yeah, Problematic Summer Romance is an age gap romance where we are following our main girl whose older brother we might know. It actually took me a while. I completely forgot who he was because I don't remember characters' names. But her older brother is actually from Not in Love, which wasn't my favorite Ali Hazelwood, actually, possibly my least favorite, just because it was kind of insta-lovey. So we've kind of already met all of these characters before, but our main characters from Not in Love are getting married in Sicily. They're having a destination wedding, and so everybody flies out, which means that our main character is going to have to stay in a villa with the man that she has been mad crushing on for years, and they have some kind of weird beef where they haven't spoken in a couple years. Of course, her brother's best friend and business partner, who is it like 16 years older than her or something? It's a significant age gap. She's in her mid to late 20s. He's in like his either late 30s or early 40s, I think. And he is keeping her at like more than an arm's length, right? He wants nothing to do with her. He is very like, no. Age gap, wrong. And she pleads her case basically for the entire lead up to the wedding. And it was quite interesting the way that she kind of laid out her evidence of like why this wouldn't be bad, why this is, you telling me, you infantilizing me is also bad, right? Like calling a 25-year-old a baby, like, why are you writing me off like that? Like she begs these questions and we can answer them however we feel. But I think sometimes our characters were a little bit silly. Like this wasn't my favorite Ali Hazelwood for sure, but I still had a good time. Oh, I wrote down my notes. Hold on. I feel like I remember the sex scenes being really weird. So my only real note, I just put, I liked it, but, and then my but is the steamy scenes would start really abruptly in the way I was reading it, at least. It felt very abrupt. And then I actually had trouble visualizing it, which is really rare for Ali. I have, especially with Emily Henry, good Lord, there's always like an extra limb that I'm like, bruh, famously took your pants off twice, Emily. Like, what's going on? I'm a very visual reader, so when things kind of don't track, I get really thrown off. And usually Ali's very good at this, but I felt like with the steamy scenes, I was sort of like, wait, we're where? You're sitting, but you were standing. But what's going with it? The steamy scenes, not for me. I also just don't ever understand like kind of hookup culture where you have a steamy scene and then you just don't talk about it the next day. Like that I can't deal with. And that happened a couple times throughout the book where I'm like, how? What? So not my favorite just in terms of like personal preference, but in terms of was it a good book? If you're interested in that kind of trope and things like that. Also just the cameos of other characters. It was a good time, I would say. Problematic Summer Romance. Once again, as someone who doesn't love that trope, didn't think I would like Deep End either. And Ali just puts drugs in her books and there's nothing I can do about it. So that's that. Okay, 2.5 DNFs. 1.5 because I was reading them on a trip and I just did not have the mental capacity. I'm not the kind of person who can read a book in little spurts. I need to read it in one go if possible, but I need like to sit down and read a book for an hour at a time. I can't do like 10 minutes at a time. No. When I solo travel, I love to read, but in this particular trip, I was with a bunch of friends, constantly doing things, so I just had no time. And the second I got in bed, I was out. So didn't have much reading time. So it's not really the fault of the books. I will return to both of these books when I have the mental capacity. And these were both library holds, so I had to return them. So that's my disclaimer for these books. They were still good. Just me bad. right? The first being the 2 Lives of Faven, Sythe. This is by the same author as These Blighted Stars, I believe, which I really enjoyed. It's a sci-fi that was just so fun. If you're kind of sick of fantasy, but you want the same kind of feeling that like a classic old enemies to lovers felt, not like the kind of blueprint that we keep, you know, the same book that we keep getting fed in the romantasy genre nowadays. If you want the kind of old feeling like something new and you haven't tried sci-fi yet, I would highly recommend These Blighted Stars. And so the second I saw that she wrote another book, I was very interested. This one is sapphic and weird. I wanted to finish it so badly that I was skimming it, and I shouldn't have. So I really had to I didn't want to DNF it, but my brain was just not actually absorbing any of the information. So this is about a world in which there are humans, and then there are beings that were created by this, to go back to Graves' situation, a kind of creation rock. It somehow managed to form these kind of humanoid things, which is our main girl, Faven Sythe. So they have certain powers, but as they use their powers, they slowly go back into being a kind of rock, if that makes sense. And one of their main powers is being able to create maps to navigate the massive universe. When Faven Sythe's mentor and basically mother goes missing, she decides to break out of her government role and instead join these kind of space pirates, and the space pirates are going to help her find her mentor and solve all of these weird disappearances. I really wanted to love it, but mental capacity, simply my issue, not the books. So if that sounds interesting to you, sapphic, space pirates, someone with magical powers that as she uses them, she is kind of killing herself, government corruption, spaceships, all that good stuff. And the pirate crew, the whole crew is so good. The 2 Lives of Faven, Sythe. I will finish it one day when my brain turns back on. Thank you. Next up, this is one that I read very little of. I think I only read 20%, and it is called Clam Down. Clam Down is a memoir about a woman who is going through a divorce, and she metaphorically, but also not metaphorically, turns into a clam. She is a mollusk. You learn a lot of really interesting facts about clams. But yeah, it was another one of those where I really needed a brain. And my brain was not on. So yeah, I think it was really interesting. I think the first chapter was gold. Like if you're just in a bookstore, pick up and read the first chapter. It was a lot of fun. As it continued, I wasn't quite sure. Like it wasn't for Faven Sythe. I knew I should have liked it, so I was really pushing myself to try and finish it. But with Clam Down, it was a very easy DNF because I already was on the fence, so it was a little bit of the book's fault, but mostly my attention span. But that's Clam Down. If you want to read about women going through shit and turning into shellfish, Clam Down. And then my final DNF, this is one that I tried to read on the airplane and then a little bit while I was struggling through jet lag back at home. This is A Fate Forged in Fire. I actually still have 16 days left to read it, so I might still try. I'm at 30%. Sorry to the 8 people who are waiting behind me. I'm working on it, babes. A Fate Forged in Fire is actually really refreshing because it's about a unapologetically power-hungry girl. I often find that when our main character is a girl and it's like a romantasy kind of situation, it's always the girl that doesn't know she has powers. It's always like, oh, I'm just a weak little girl. I never knew that I had this power. Or they're like desperately trying to hide it because, you know, oh, I'm going to be persecuted if they find out. No. This girl, she is hiding her powers, but she's hiding them because she's planning a coup. She is going to be queen. She has known this since birth. She is ready to overthrow the government. She's just waiting for the right time. She's got a plan. So I kind of liked that. She was immediately pretty ruthless and pretty secure in her power and what she wanted, and that throne was going to be hers, and she didn't care what princes she needed to cut down to get there. So I liked the setup. I just think that it moved a little slowly. I think I'm actually at like 36% maybe even. And we're just kind of getting to the coup. It's one that I will go back to, but I kind of put it down for a little bit because I could feel the reading slump. Like I had DNF 3-4 books in a row basically, and this I knew wasn't going to be the book that was going to get me out of my slump. So I put it down for now. This was another one where she has to hide her red hair because it's a sign of magic. And I was like, guys, a fate forged in fire. I will, since I have 16 days, maybe I'll start it today. Yeah, that was a soft DNF just because it wasn't gonna break my slump. Needed something to break my slump. And what do we do when we need to break out of a reading slump? In my world, we read another romance. And here I am reading, oh, wait. I actually do have another DNF. This is a soft DNF. I will return to it one day, but I attempted a Tessa Dare thinking my queen does not let me down. I've never read a Tessa Dare that I didn't like. And I DNF'd at about 20%. A Knight to Surrender, unfortunately. This was a case of kind of insta love or like insta lust, and that's never my thing. And so because of that, I'm not going to go into what the book is really about, but it was basically a historical romance. But Tessa Dare does historical romance in a very kooky way. So this was about like a town that is only for women, where women can come and like basically escape men because men suck. And this man shows up. But anyway, it was insta lust. It wasn't for me. I put it down. Crazy. So I decided to read another rom-com that was recommended by my friend Susan Lee, but also I believe Ali, like her whole friend group. Okay. The romance writers recommended this. So I listened to them. And this is Dreaming of You. Another historical romance that I did finish, and it wasn't my style, but I'll take it. It did the job. It broke my reading slump, so I'll give it that. Dreaming of You is about a woman who is a writer. She writes stories about kind of the underbelly of London society. She lives in some like idyllic tiny village, and she writes about, gambling and prostitution and all of this stuff. And she's very successful, very famous. So she's feeling a lot of pressure for her third book, and she wants to make sure she gets all the details right. So she comes to London and is trying to interview and infiltrate this very famous gambling den. She accidentally saves the head of the gambling den from an assault. She may or may not have killed a man accidentally, which is sort of brushed over, might I add. But yeah, she saves the life of this man. And so she kind of finagles her way into the gambling den so that she can do her research. And so she keeps crossing paths with this kind of king of the underworld who is actually, as we know, just a little boy with a lot of trauma, okay? And of course they fall in love. It's like classic nerdy goody two-shoes falls in love with the bad boy with a bad backstory, It was fine. It wasn't my cup of tea, but it, like I said, did the job. So if you're looking for another historical romance, this was also written in the 90s. So there are plenty of things that I was like, ooh, we said things like that in the 90s. We thought things like that in the 90s, especially because they're talking about sex workers. And sometimes the way that they were portrayed, I was a little bit like, ooh. It was what it was, and it got me out of my reading slump, so I can only say thank you for that. Dreaming of You. And I'm going to switch my battery now before it tells me that oh, damn it just told me. Oh my god, my foot is asleep. Give me a sec. Okay, crisis over. My final book, I actually just finished it maybe 3 hours ago over my morning coffee. I read Shield of Sparrows. So this came on my radar because it was being compared to Silver Elite, which I, for the life of me, do not understand why they were being compared. People were saying like, oh, they're both dystopian and they're both about... No. Sorry, no. The only comparison was that the main male character of Silver Elite, his name is Cross, and the last name of the main female character is Cross. So, let me know. Like, I don't have an issue with it. I'm very confused by why they kept getting mentioned together. I don't know. But Shield of Sparrows, You know what? It felt like what... Okay, hold on. Okay, this is gonna sound meaner than I think it is. It read to me... It felt to me like if Metal Slinger was written by a person with a brain. Like, if Metal Slinger actually had a world that made any fucking sense, or sentences that made any fucking sense, I'm still really pissed about Metal Slinger, if you can't tell. Shield of Sparrows kind of gave me the same feeling, where it was incredibly telly. It's in first person. I feel like I noticed it a lot less as the story went on because it got a lot more action heavy. But in the beginning, when we are getting the initial setup, it was so tell, not show. So I pretty immediately wrote it off as like, ugh, this is gonna be bad. It got better, but also not really. I started taking pictures, actually, instead of highlighting. I don't know why I was taking pictures. What did I? Oh, okay. So the language is very modern and silly. This is in first person. We are following a princess. Let me tell you what it's about. I'm so sorry. We are following our main character, who is a princess, but she is the least favorite daughter. So she is not planning on doing anything with her life. She's engaged to this general that she doesn't like, but she'll tolerate, and she's just gonna kind of live her life. She likes to go cliff diving. That's her thing, and that's her destiny. Her sister, who's the favorite, is going to be married off to the far-off kingdom. They're kind of frenemies, and she's going to be queen and do all these wonderful things. But all of that changes when their frenemies decide that they want her as the bride instead of her sister. So she has to go on this adventure. She's trying to be a spy for her father. And in the meantime, the entire world is being overrun with these magical creatures that are killing everybody. So we also have to deal with that. Okay, I'm not explaining it very well, but that's essentially what's going on. So our princess is telling us all of this stuff that happens. And at one point, okay, this is to set the scene. She thinks that one of her guards, this woman named Tilia, she thinks that Tilia is hooking up with this other guy, and our princess is feeling a little jealous about it. But then she sees Tilia kiss another man, and she says, "My brain exploded." She's like, "The moment the ranger reached her side, he took her face in his large hands and kissed her. My brain exploded." Who was he? What about blah, blah, blah? What was happening? So it's a lot of that, like, my brain exploded. She writes a lot of like, what, period, the, period, fuck, period. So that kind of writing, which already had me a little bit At one point, this woman shakes her hand, and you know how sometimes people will, like, as they're doing a handshake, like put their hand over your hand and kind of shake it like this. She explains this phenomenon, and she was like, "It was a hug for my hand." I miss hugs. So, you know, right? And then I think the final issue for me really was that we have no concept of age for these characters. So there's a lot of this is not a spoiler, but nobody is who they say they are. Everybody has secrets. We don't know anybody's real names. We're in the dark for the entire book. But once certain like relationships and roles and titles and all of these things are being revealed, we don't know how old people are. So we'll be like, "Oh, this person is this person's sister." And I'm like, "How old is she?" And then they'll be like, "Oh, but this person is this person's mother." And I'm like, "Well, I thought she was 16, so that's weird." And like, I just had no concept of any of these characters. They're just kind of introduced by name only, like name and hair color only. So also the sun is gone. I'm so sorry. So yeah, I think, you know what? It passed the time as it got further along, and it was a lot more action based. There's also like a little girl that gets introduced, and when there's a cute kid in the book, usually the book gets better for me. So it wasn't horrible, but it was not fantastic. I would say better than Silver Elite, absolutely. But yeah, it was just kind of missing a lot. There was, I think, a strong foundation. I thought that the kind of idea, I don't want to spoil it, but kind of the idea behind some of these monsters was very interesting, but it was rather slow moving. Like, this book was, on my Kindle, 650 pages. I think it could have been cut down a lot. It could have been cut down a lot. But that's just me. So you know what? It wasn't that bad. I think if you really need a kind of brain off, easy to read experience, this was easy to read because of the way that it was written. Will I continue the series? Most likely not. This was another, just to like keep it going, this was another book where our main character had to dye her hair because no one could know she was a redhead. And I don't know. And it's a mark of magic in some way, as we will, I'm sure, learn more about in the second book, but I'm not going to read it. So that was Shield of Sparrows. Let me know your thoughts on it. It passed the time, and the fact that I could read a 600-page book as I'm still kind of climbing out of a reading slump is something. It's not nothing, you know. But yeah, that was Shield of Sparrows. Yeah. That was the last book I finished this morning. So technically July 1st. Sorry, but I'm counting it now. But anyway, that's what I read this month. Sorry that it was mostly DNFs. I hope that I can make up to it on my vlog channel with my Paris, Marseille, and kind of Provence and general Provence area vlogs for you. As always, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you were reading. I actually only have 2 books on hold that I'm waiting for. Other than that, like, I don't know what to read next. I know that I just talked about my TBR, so I could absolutely go dive into all of my physical books, but when I'm in a reading slump, I tend to really need to read an ebook just because I can read it faster, and when I'm reading physical, sometimes it slows me down, and that just kind of fuels my slump even more, if that makes sense. So let me know what you're reading so that I can go to my library and get it. And thank you to all of you. All the books that hit were recommendations by you guys. So thank you very, very much, especially to my funny fantasy people. And I will see you guys next week. I'm actually working on a video. I hope I have it ready in time for next week, but I'm working on a video about one of my favorite fantasy series that crashed and burned so hard. I believe it is cursed. I don't know what happened. I haven't read the final book. I might read the final book for the video, but honestly, I don't know if I can. We're going to talk about a cursed series that started off so strong. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I'll see you then. I hope it's enjoyable for people who, even if you didn't read the series, maybe I'm saving you from pain. Yeah, that's what I'm working on now. But if you have any kind of video ideas for me, let me know. I'm kind of stuck after vacation. I don't really know how to jump back in. So any book recommendations, video recommendations, etc., it's always welcome. So I will catch you then. Once again, thank you so much to Squarespace. You can go to Squarespace right now and try it out for free. And then you can go to squarespace.com/CarrieCanRead to get 10% off your first website or domain. Information in the description box, as always, as well as titles, authors, that whole thing. Loved you always. Thank you for your patience while I was away. Hope you guys are having a wonderful summer or winter so far. Hope you're staying cool. And yeah, I will see you later. Will the sun be out next week so I can talk to you? Probably not, but I'll be here nonetheless. So, see you then.